it's Alice, and today we are doing a sort of revisit or a remake of a video that I did maybe like 3 years ago, where the point of the video was like, if I could only keep 30 books, which books would I keep? I don't really remember where the idea came from or where the number 30 came from. I wonder if it had something to do with the Marie Kondo book that was really popular at the time. I don't remember, but I just thought it could be fun to do it again. I think my selection this time will be quite different, and I want to like compare a little bit and see how different it is. And obviously I have more books than 30, so it would be a very small portion of my collection, but it would be interesting to see what I would keep if I could only keep 30. And also, I think it can just be fun. Now, I, as you may know, love having books. I love collecting books, and I feel like it's sort of my second favorite hobby in addition to reading. I feel like they're connected, but they're not the same. Not all readers care about having physical books or care about having like a book collection, but I really do. I love having books around me, and I love like the physical thing of a book, and it's honestly where a lot of my adult money goes to, and I just love it. But I wonder what I would keep if I could only keep 30 of them. It'll be interesting to see, and it also puts things into perspective in a way that is interesting. And I do think that my selection now will be quite different than the books that I picked last time. I'll put them up on the screen so you can see what I picked. I do think there will be some overlap, but I don't really know what I was thinking when I picked these other books. I think if I remember correctly, and just looking at the books from last time, I think I did a sort of 50-50 split of my favorite books and books I wanted to read. And I think this time I would do it a little bit differently. I am going to do it a little bit differently. But I think because I am not a huge rereader, I'm going to skew it a little bit differently. So I'm going to have less of my favorite books and more of books that I want to read, because I generally only really read new books. I don't reread a lot at all. But I would like, if I were to have a collection of only 30 books, I would like a portion of it to be my favorites. Picking only 10 of my favorite books is actually quite hard, but the first book that I know that I would want in my collection is my favorite book, and it's also one of the few books that I do actually reread, and I'm sure a lot of you can guess what it is. I have several editions of that book though, so I would have to pick one of them. So let's find them and see which one I want to keep. I've just opened the doors on my shelves, by the way, that's why it looks a little bit different. But of course, my first pick of the 30 books would be one of these editions of The Secret History. The Secret History is one of my favorite books ever, and it's, like I mentioned, one of the few books that I do actually reread regularly. So I would want to keep one of these. I don't think I would keep this one because it's white and it would get ruined. And it's between these two. This is the book that I have read. I actually haven't read this one, but I just got it because it's a beautiful edition of the book and it's hardcover. But this is the copy that I usually read, and it's the one that I've annotated. And it's kind of like, it's a little grubby, to be honest, but I don't know. I feel like because I annotated this one, I would probably keep this, even though this is like a beautiful, beautiful copy, and it would last longer. So, I don't know. It is basically the same book, just in paperback and hardcover, but I don't know. You know what? We're gonna go for the red copy because it's the one that I've annotated. So, this is my first. We have 29 to go. Next to that, I would want my collection to have some of my favorite classics. And I do have a lot of favorite classics, but I guess I should pick ones that I would want to reread one day and that are like really like my top tier favorites. So let's find some classics. I also actually have the same issue with some of my favorite classics where I have several editions of them, but I guess that's also a good way to find out which ones are actually like my absolute favorites, because usually I will have more than one copy of the ones that I absolutely love. These ones feel like pretty obvious choices to me, like I would really want to have these in my collection. Two of them I had in the previous video. Oh, I also need Jane Eyre. Oh, I have to have that too. Slight edit, I of course would have to have Jane Eyre in my collection because I love that book. But these are also all books that I would like to reread. But only 3 of them were in my last video, so I don't know why. I know I had read them at that point, but I guess at that time they weren't important to me. But I would want to keep Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's one of my favorite books, and I actually have tried, or like, I've been thinking of rereading it for the past 3 years, and I just haven't done it yet, but I really, really want to, and this is a beautiful edition. That and Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy was in my previous selection. Of course, I would want to keep this. It's one of my favorite classics. I really want to reread it, and it's a beautiful book. And then, like I mentioned, Jane Eyre also appeared in my last selection. I love this book. It's amazing. These 2 were not in my selection last time, and I don't really know why because they feel like such obvious choices to me. But I would want to keep a copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and then I would want Animal Farm by George Orwell. I didn't have any Orwell in the last selection, and I don't really understand why because I had read those books at that time. I love both Animal Farm and 1984, but I think for the enjoyment level of it, I would be more interested in reading, like rereading this one again. I actually need to do that soon, but yeah, I would want these as well. That's 6 books already, and if I want to stick to my like idea, I can then pick 4 other favorites, and then we're gonna move on to books that I want to read. Only 4 feels like an issue, but I'm gonna try. So I've perused my shelves and found some more books. I also looked at the list from last time again, by the way. Pride and Prejudice was on it. I was like, why isn't it there? But it was, so I didn't have a complete stroke back then. But these ones, I only have 1 overlap from last time. It's Strange Weather in Tokyo by Harumi Kawakami. I don't know what it is about this book. I just absolutely love it, and I would have to have it in my collection for some reason because it's one of my favorites. It's so weird, but I just love it. These ones though are all new, and I have a feeling that when I edit this video, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, you forgot about all these books. But I'm just basing it on what I can remember that I love and that like I saw on my shelves, and I just feel like I would have to keep these. I would want to keep an edition of Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I love this book. I know not everyone does, but I absolutely love it. I would want to keep Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which again, not everyone loves, but I love it. And I also love this edition. And then this is a new favorite. This is The Adventures of Amin al-Surafi. This is probably my favorite adventure book that I have ever read, and I think it's amazing. I love it. I want to reread it every year until I die, and because of that, I would have to keep it. That's 10 books, and I guess the remaining 20 are gonna be like a sort of TBR, and I feel like if I were to make a TBR of 20 books and I couldn't keep any of my other books, I would want to think about it a little bit. I would want to have maybe a few classics. Right now, I'm not like super into reading classics, like I'm not really in the mood for them, but I think I would want a couple, and then some translated books because I want to read more translated fiction. So, oh, also some nonfiction maybe. I don't know about that actually, but I'm gonna see if I can find some classics and some translated books. Okay, so we have 2 classics and 2 translated books, and looking at my shelves now, I see that I have overlooked a lot of favorites that I would definitely want to keep, but we gotta just move on. My 2 classics, I would want to keep Green Banks by Dorothy Whipple, because Dorothy Whipple is one of my favorite classic authors, and I can't believe I didn't pick one of those for the other section, but whatever. I haven't read this one, and I want to make my way through all of her work, so I would want to keep this. And it's kind of the same thing with this actually. This is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. This is one of the few Virginia Woolf books that I haven't read yet, and I would like to read all of her books, so I would want to keep these 2. For translated books, honestly, it's really difficult, and I just picked these 2. They're actually both translated from Korean, and I just think they look really good. This is Welcome to the Hunyum Dung Bookshop, and I really like these kinds of translated books set in bookshops. I don't quite remember what this is about, but I think it's about like a woman leaving her life behind and finding like the meaning of life in a bookshop or something. And then this other one just sounds really trippy. It's about this woman, I think, who works in like a place where you can buy dreams. So it's a department store that you can go to when you're sleeping and you can buy dreams. I don't know, but it just sounds crazy and I really want to read it. While I was finding those books though, I also came across like several other books that I would want on my TBR, so I'm just gonna go get them and we'll do them now. These are all relatively recent purchases and I really want to read all of these, so I'm just gonna include them because I would want a part of my collection to just be like newer books that I'm super excited about. The first one is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I would want to keep this just because I really like this author. I've read 2 books by her and I feel like she's going to become a favorite and I just want to read more. I don't remember what this book is about even, but I'm sure it's gonna be amazing, so I would want to keep that. I would also want to keep What the River Knows. This is an adventure book, and I find adventure books really difficult to find, like the type of adventure that I want to read. And this has like exploration, a secret, there's maybe some like fantasy elements, there's like ancient magic, a girl goes to Egypt. I think it's gonna be great. It says it's like The Mummy meets Death on the Nile, and that sounds amazing. I also really want to read Bookshops and Bone Dust. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes, which I absolutely loved, and I just think this is gonna be super cozy. It follows the same main character as the other book before like the events of that book. Really want to read it. It would be nice to have like a cozy book on my TBR. Then we have Voyage of the Damned. I just have a really good feeling about this book. It's also, again, sort of like an adventure, but it's like a fantasy adventure. It's a locked room or like closed circle mystery. So there's a murder in here, but it's set in a fantasy world. It sounds really cool. And then I would want to keep The Fury by Alex Michaelides just because I like this author and I'm super excited about this book. Again, it's a closed circle mystery and I don't know. I just think I'm really gonna like it. That leaves 11 books, and I think I would like to have some nonfiction in this collection, so let's see if we can find some nonfiction books. Okay, we're gonna do 3 nonfiction books. 2 of these I've had on my TBR for quite some time, and I just am intimidated because they're kind of chunky, but I really want to read In the Shadow of Man by Jane Goodall because, obviously. I also am really intrigued by this one. This is Notes on a Silencing, which is a memoir about this like elite school where all of this stuff happened that was like covered up, and I think the author like came across an article that said something about it. It had come out and she realized that she had like repressed some memories or something. I don't remember, but it sounds very intriguing. And then I would like to keep this new one. This is Man's Search for Meaning, which sounds so harrowing. It's by a person who survived the Holocaust, and a lot of people say that this book is gonna blow my mind, and I feel like it's gonna break me, but I would like to have it in my collection. That means we have 8 books left, and to be honest, I'm getting a little stressed. This is like totally fictional, like I'm gonna keep all of my books, but I'm just like, I don't really know what I would keep. It's really difficult, but I think I'm just gonna go on pure instinct. I'm gonna look at my shelves and just pick out what appeals to me right now. The thing about this is that I'm kind of like a mood reader, and I really like having a lot to choose from because I never know what kind of mood I'm gonna be in, and with a smaller collection it would be a little bit more difficult, but I'm just gonna base it on my mood and just pick out the last 8. Okay, so it's now kind of dawning on me why my selection in that other video was kind of weird. Like, it feels weird now that I'm looking back at it. I'm like, why would you pick those books? It's because it's impossible. It's impossible to pick a TBR of books you know you're gonna like, and it's just really difficult. So I've picked the last 8. Why I've picked these over everything else, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. This is just what I think I'll like. The first one is The Lies of Locke Lamora. Why? I don't really know. I just think I'm really gonna like this. It's one of those books that I've sort of been saving for a rainy day because it sounds amazing. It's like a high fantasy adventure type book, and a lot of people have told me I'm gonna love it. So there's that. I also have Special Topics in Calamity Physics, which is like a dark academia book. Just keeping this because I really like dark academia. We have The 13th Tale. This is a book that I've actually wanted to read for ages. I haven't had this book for that long, but it's one of those books that I keep seeing everywhere, and a lot of people absolutely love it, and so I'm hoping that I will too. Another one of those books that everyone tells me I'm gonna love is Shadow of the Wind. I guess this is kind of like a classic at this point, maybe like a modern classic. I would like to keep this. It's a book about books. It does sound amazing. Then I did find another nonfiction book, actually. The Invention of Nature. This is a history book about Alexander von Humboldt. I've actually started this book and then I put it down because I just wasn't really in the mood for it. But the part that I read was amazing and I would like to finish it. So we have another nonfiction. The last three are just random. We have A Morbid Taste for Bones, which is a mystery novel set in the Middle Ages, and it follows like a monk that solves crimes. I don't know, sounds good. Then we have Love and Fury by Samantha Silva. I've wanted to read this for ages. It's like a fictionalized tale of Mary Wollstonecraft, who was the mother of Mary Shelley. I just think it could be cool. It's also a beautiful book. And then my last pick, I guess, is this one. This is Rogue by Mona Awad, which I just want to read because I read Bunny by this author, and I really liked it. It was kind of trippy and dreamlike, and we need some weird books in this selection. I feel not super confident in this selection, but like, this is impossible. I'm super lucky. I have so many books that I would like to read, and I'm just very excited about a lot of them. But I guess this is my selection. Let's do another like overview of them. I don't know. I don't know if this like represents me that well, but it's what we got. I will also do a comparison of how many were in my previous video and like how much overlap there is, but I think most of the overlap is just the favorites. I don't think any of the TBR is an overlap, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, I have read a lot of the books that I showed in that first video, and I guess not all of them, I mean, I know not all of them were like super favorites, but I'm sure it would be the same with this. Like if I read the entire TBR, it would be the same. Some of them would be amazing and some of them wouldn't be. It's hard to tell when you haven't read the books. That was kind of it for this video though. It's a little bit different, but I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. It's a fun experiment for me and slightly stressful, but mostly fun. And I'd love to hear what you think of my selection. Have I forgotten any books? I'm sure I have. Please remind me. And then also, what books would you pick if you could only keep a certain number of books? You can do 30 if you want, or a smaller number, maybe like 10. I feel like 10 would be impossible. Like, I don't know how I would do that. As always though, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!